This is the review for Chapter 7, Quiz 2. The first 4 questions on your quiz will look like this. You'll be given parallel lines cut by a transversal. That forms these 8 angles. All right, remember that the C is there just to confuse you, and so is the A and the B, so we're just going to ignore those. What you need to do is you need to name one pair of vertical angles, alternate interior angles, supplementary angles, and corresponding angles. Remember that when it says to name a pair, you are naming 2 letters. So like AB or XY or things like that. Go ahead and do questions 1 through 4, please. When we take a look at vertical angles, remember, form an X. The top and bottom of the X are the same. The left and the right of the X are the same. You have an X on the top here with P, Q, R, and X. So P and R are vertical angles. Q and X are vertical angles. You could also have the reverse of those. So R and P, X and Q. You also have vertical angles in the bottom half set with S, W, V, and T. So W and T are vertical angles, or TW, and S and V, or VS. So there's 4 different pairs of vertical angles in this picture. Alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles, we're looking for angles that are inside the parallel lines and are in opposite corners. So that would be X and S and R and W. Remember that you can have the reverse of those letters as well. Supplementary angles. Supplementary angles form this picture where they are angles that are right next to each other. The easiest one to pick out is right at the top, right? Because you see that same exact picture with P and Q. But you also have them along the side, Q and R. You also have them along the bottom, X and R. You also have them along the left-hand side, P and X. Then you have the bottom half set. So you have W and S. You have S and T along the side, V and T along the bottom, and W and V along the side. So there's really 8 different pairs of supplementary angles. The next kind are corresponding angles. Remember that the S and P in corresponding stands for the same place. Remember that you have an upper half set of angles and a bottom half set of angles. You're looking for angles, for example, in the top left and top left, which would be P and W. Top right, which would be Q and S. Bottom right, that would be R and T. Bottom left, X and V. So on the quiz, you will have to name pairs of angles like that. The next 2 questions look like this. Given parallel lines cut by a transversal, I give you one angle. You have to find and fill in all 7 missing angles. Go ahead and do question number 6, please. Find all 7 missing angles. The easiest way to do this is to do your pairs of supplementary angles first. Those are angles that are right next to each other. They add up to 180 degrees, so this one would have to be 50. Same thing here. You have 50 next to the 130, because when they're right next to each other, they add up to 180. This one has to be 130. Remember that your bottom half set is the same exact pattern as your upper half set. So across the top, we have 50 and 130. Across the bottom, we have 130 and 50. So you'll have to fill in all 7 missing angles. Go ahead and do another one just like that, please. This time you're given an angle of 60. So if this angle is 60, the one next to it has to be 120. The one above it has to be 120 because when they're right next to each other, they add up to 180. This one has to be 60. Your upper half set is the same exact pattern as your bottom half set. So we have 120 and 60 across the top, 60 and 120 across the bottom. So you'll have 2 questions on your quiz that looks like this. The next 4 questions, you are going to have to do several things. You are going to have to name the angle relationship. By angle relationship, I mean, are they supplementary angles that you're given, alternate interior, vertical, or corresponding angles? Then you're going to have to set up an equation, solve it for x, sub it back in to find the 2 missing angles. Go ahead and do question number 8. First of all, say whether it's supplementary, corresponding, alternate interior, or vertical. Set up an equation, solve for x, and sub it back in. Go ahead and do question number 8, please. So when you take a look at these 2 angles, they are inside the parallel lines in opposite corners. Therefore, these are alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles are equal to each other. You also know that they're equal to each other because they're both the same type of angle. We have an acute angle and an acute angle. So they are equal to each other. We need to set them equal to each other. 5x equals 3x plus 20. You have letters on both sides. I like working with the smaller letter first, so minus 3x minus 3x. So you have 2x equals 20. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 10. We then have to take that 10 and you have to sub it back in and sub it back in. 5 times 10 is 50. 3 times 10 is 30 plus 20 is 50. So you end up with 50 and 50. So again, you'll have to say what kind of angles they are. You'll have to set up the equation. You'll have to solve for x, and then you'll have to sub it back in to find those 2 angles on your quiz. Go ahead and do question number 9. It is the same type of question. If you're having a hard time starting this one, let me help you start it. First of all, are they alternate interior? No, they're on the outside. Are they vertical? No, they don't form an X. Are they corresponding? No, they're not in the same place. Upper left, bottom left. So therefore, that leaves supplementary. Well, I know for sure that they are supplementary because notice that you have one acute angle and one obtuse angle. Anytime that you have one acute and one obtuse, they have to be supplementary angles. Now, you might be saying, well, they're not next to each other. Well, this angle is in the bottom left. The angle that's in the bottom left here has to be the same thing. So if I take this angle and I move it up, now those two angles are next to each other. Now they're supplementary. You could also take and move this angle down, top left, top left. Now these two angles are next to each other. So they are definitely supplementary. Remember that supplementary angles add up to 180. They are not equal to each other. So they add up to 180. 1x plus 1x is 2x. Then you have a plus 30 equals 180. So this is just a two-step equation. Minus 30 minus 30. So 2x equals 150. Divide by 2's. X equals 75. Take that 75, sub it back in, sub it back in. So this angle is 75. 75 plus 30 is 105. Always make sure that your answer makes sense. 75 plus 105 does give us 180. Go ahead and do question number 10. It is the same exact type of question. Say whether they are supplementary, vertical, corresponding, or alternate interior. Set up an equation, solve for x, sub it back in to find the two angles. What you have in this one are that these two angles are forming an X. So these are vertical angles. Vertical angles are equal to each other. We also know that they're equal to each other because they're both the same kind of angle. We have an obtuse angle and an obtuse angle. Remember that if they look the same, they are the same. They're equal to each other. So you set the two angles equal to each other. The one equals the other. There's really a 1 in front of that x, so I'm going to attack that x first by doing minus 1x and minus 1x. Now I just have a two-step equation, add 10 and add 10 to get the 3x all by itself. Divide by 3's, and you get x equals 30. Take that 30, sub it back in, sub it back in. We get 110 and 110. Go ahead and try the next one. Again, are they supplementary, corresponding, vertical, or alternate interior? Set up an equation, solve for x, sub it back in to find those two angles. when you go to look at these two angles, they are in the same place. They are in the upper right and upper right. If they are in the same place, they are corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are equal to each other. You also know that they're equal to each other because they're both the same kind of angle. We have an acute angle and an acute angle. If they look the same, they are the same, they are equal to each other. So I have letters on both sides of my equal sign. I'm going to do minus 2x and minus 2x first. Now you just have a one-step equation, minus 20 and minus 20 to get the x all by itself. You end up with x equals 20. Take that 20, sub it back in, sub it back in. 2 times 20 is 40, plus 40 is 80. 3 times 20 is 60, plus 20 is 80. So you end up with 80 and 80. So you're going to have 4 questions just like that, where you have to name the type of angle, set up the equation, solve for x, sub it back in to find the 2 missing angles. The next type of question, you're going to have 2 of these. Remember that the 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So you're going to be given 2 angles of the triangle. You need to find the 3rd missing angle. The easiest way in these type of questions is just to take 180 and subtract out the 2 angles that you're given. So 180 minus 60 minus 40, and that will give you your answer of 80. Or you could set up an equation for this. The 3 angles added together, so you have an x, and then you have a 40 and a 60, which gives you 100, equals 180. So you could set up a one-step equation like this, minus 100 minus 100. You still get your answer of 80. Always make sure that your answer makes sense. The 3 angles added together have to equal 180 degrees. So you're going to have 2 questions like this where you have to find the 3rd angle of the triangle. Now, keeping with that the 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180, you're also going to have questions like this, where you have x's in multiple angles. So with these, you need to set up an equation, solve for x, sub it back in to find all 3 angles of the triangle. Go ahead and do question number 12, please. The 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. We need to add together our 1x, and our 2x to be 4x. Then we need to add together our plus 11 and our plus 5 to be a plus 16. Make sure that you're paying attention to the sign that's in front of those plain numbers. If it was a minus sign, you'd have to treat it as a negative sign. Minus 16 minus 16. So 4x equals 164. Divide by 4, x equals 41. Take that 41, sub it back in, sub it back in, sub it back in. 1 times 41 is 41 for this angle. 1 times 41 is 41, plus 11 is 52. 2 times 41 is 82, plus 5 is 87. Always make sure your answer makes sense. 52 plus 41 plus 87 does give us 180, which is what we are looking for. Go ahead and try another one of these. Set up your equation, solve for x, sub it back in to find all three angles. The three angles of a triangle add up to 180. So we have a 1x, a 1x, and a 1x. So that is 3x. We have a 40 and a 40. That makes 80. Plus a negative 20. That makes a plus 60 in our equation. So minus 60 minus 60. So I have 3x equals 120. Divide by 3, divide by 3. X equals 40. Take that 40, sub it back in, sub it back in, sub it back in. This would be 40 plus 40 is 80. 40 plus 40 is 80. 40 minus 20 is 20. Always make sure your answer makes sense. 80 plus 80 plus 20 does give us 180, which is what we should have. You're going to have two of those questions on your quiz. The next type of question are these exterior angles of the triangle. Remember that these two angles added together equals this outside angle here. All right, these two remote interior angles, the two that are far away, added together equals this outside angle. So the first thing that you need to do is fill in what you have. Angle DEG. DEG. Remember, you need to be able to trace it with your finger. This angle, it says, is 120. DFG. DFG. This angle is 50. Find angle EGF. EGF. Find that purple angle at the top. So these two angles added together equals this outside angle. So x plus 50 equals, x plus 50 equals 120. So minus 50 minus 50. So we get x equals 70. That means this angle at the top is 70. 70 plus 50 gives you that outside angle of 120. These two inside angles added together equals that outside angle. So let's take a look at another one, and you're going to try this one. CAB is 3x minus 6. So this angle is 3x minus 6. ABC is 2x. And BCD is 3x plus 50. So these two angles inside added together equals this angle on the outside. So add together these two, set it equal to that one, solve for x, sub it back in to find the three angles. Go ahead and try this one, please. 3x plus 2x gives you 5x minus 6. Those are those two inside angles added together, equals that outside angle of 3x plus 50. So minus 3x minus 3x. So you have 2x minus 6 equals 50, plus 6 plus 6. So 2x equals 56. Divide by 2's. You get x equals 28. Take that and sub it back in. So what we end up having is an angle of 78 here at the top. We have an angle of 56 here. And our outside angle is 134. Always make sure your answer makes sense. 78 plus 56 equals 134. You'll have 2 of those on your quiz. The last 3 questions look like this, where you have to say whether the triangles are similar or not. Remember that in order for it to be similar, you have to have 2 pairs of angles equal to each other. 2 pairs of angles have to be equal to each other. Go ahead and do all 3 of these, please. So in number 16, we have a right angle and a right angle. That's 1 pair of angles. We have the angle with the 2 curves and the 2 curves. That is enough to say that, yes, they are similar. We do have a 3rd pair as well, but we just need 2 pairs to make it similar. If you have more, that's great. In 17, we have the 78 and the 78 that are the same, but we don't have any other angles that are the same. So they only have 1 pair. So this is a no, because they only have 1 pair of angles that are the same. Remember, if they have 0 pairs that are the same or only 1 pair, they are not similar. In number 18, we're looking at 2 different triangles here. We're looking at this right triangle, and we're looking at this right triangle. So you have, right away, you have the 90-degree angle and the 90-degree angle. That's 1 pair. But then we have a 50 and a 40. Well, we have a missing angle. Always find the missing angles if you can, because if I find that missing angle, it's 40. Ding, ding, ding. There's my 2nd pair of angles that are the same. So yes, these 2 triangles are similar. We could have found where angle FED is as well. That angle is 50, and that would be our 3rd pair of angles that are the same. So those are what your quiz questions look like.